I'm Tammy Bruce in for Laura Ingraham, and this is a special edition of the Ingraham Angle, a week in an hour. From Kabul to COVID and the worst in media, we have a big show for you tonight. Newt Gingrich joins us in a moment. But first, this week will go down as one of the most shocking displays of government ineptitude in our nation's history. It's a disgrace that the Biden administration's incompetence and ineptitude has left thousands of Americans stranded in Afghanistan at the mercy of the murderous Taliban. It's beyond infuriating that Biden and Jen Psaki began the week on vacation as the Taliban took over the country. We didn't even hear from Joe until Monday. And at that point, he was too scared to take questions. Biden's ABC interview only raised more questions about his and his team's decision-making skills. In fact, it wasn't until late this morning that the president's team apparently realized that maybe he shouldn't head to his Delaware beach house today. He'll reportedly go tomorrow instead. Who wants to stay in the White House during a crisis anyway? After hearing his disaster of a news conference today, we can confidently conclude that the Biden White House and cabinet are simply members of a gang that can't shoot or talk straight. They are a basket case teeming with contradictions and incompetence. After a week of mixed messages and fumbles, Biden's team still isn't even on the same page.
What interest do we have in Afghanistan at this point with al-Qaeda gone?
We know that al-Qaeda is a presence, as well as ISIS, in Afghanistan.
Wow. Now, it's now clear that Biden is being kept either in the dark by his team, has completely lost touch with reality.
To America's partners around the world who have criticized not the withdrawal, but the conduct of that withdrawal, and made them question America's credibility on the world stage.
I have seen no question of our credibility from our allies around the world. The fact of the matter is, I have not seen that. As a matter of fact, the exact opposite I've gotten. The exact opposite thing is we're acting with dispatch. We're acting, committing to what we said we would do.
Well, what are they telling him? Now, someone should at least tell our allies. As the Wall Street Journal editorial board notes, the chaotic Afghan withdrawal has shocked and angered U.S. allies. And yesterday, the UK Parliament held Biden in contempt for his disastrous withdrawal. So much for rebuilding NATO. Another 3 years of Biden, and we're going to be lucky if we have a single ally left. Now, joining me now is a man you know, is Newt Gingrich, former House Speaker, Fox News contributor. Mr. Speaker, you've been in government a long time. You know the world. You've experienced many things. Many of us have. It is a remarkable, there's so many layers to this. It is shocking, it is disturbing, it's dangerous, it's frightening. What are your thoughts about what has unfolded in this past week?
Well, I think, first of all, you need to see Afghanistan as sort of a warning sign, not just focus on Afghanistan, but we're drifting into what von Neumann called a crisis of crises. Across our entire system, things don't work. And what you just saw, let's focus narrowly on the Pentagon and the intelligence community. You have in the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, two people who are focused on creating a woke military. Well, we just learned that the greatest 21st century woke military can't defeat a 7th century group of warriors who are willing to die for their cause. Now that should sober us, and it should make us think about China, Russia, and Iran, and other countries who are watching this whole process. I mean, Biden either has been kept deliberately ignorant or has such deep cognitive difficulties he just doesn't get it. But we have reports, for example, that 23 members of the embassy wrote a letter of dissent, which is, by the way, in State Department terms, a very big deal. I mean, you're putting your career on the line to sign a letter like that. They sent it to the Secretary of State. We don't know if the Secretary of State, Blinken, took it to Biden or not. We don't know if Biden understood it or not. But that letter by people who are in Kabul said, this is going to be a disaster. The president's press conference today, he just kept, now, I started to say he's kept lying, but the truth is, I don't know if he knows what the facts are. So it's not fair to challenge somebody who maybe has significant cognitive problems with lying if, in fact, he just doesn't get it. He doesn't understand what's going on around him.
Mr. Speaker,
he doesn't understand what you and I see on television.
Yeah, there's another comment he made. Let's play this next note here about the cables that have been going around trying to alert them to what's been happening in Kabul.
Can you say why, after that cable was issued, the U.S. didn't do more to get Americans
Got
out?
all kinds of cables, all kinds of advice. If you notice, it ranged from this group saying that they didn't say it'd fall when it would fall, when it did fall, but saying that it would fall, to others saying it wouldn't happen for a long time and they'd be able to sustain themselves through the end of the year.
So what's strange, even there with what you noted, it appears as though he might be slightly aware of it, but then someone has told him that it really doesn't matter because they always get a lot of cables. It's as though, Mr. Speaker, we don't know who the president is. We don't know who the center of gravity is. Or maybe there isn't one, sir. Maybe it is just groupthink and gangs, and no one's talking to anybody else.
I don't think you have an administration right now. First of all, it was Secretary Blinken's job to make sure that the president understood how big a deal 23 professionals risking their career to sign a letter like that. A descending cable in the State Department is a big deal. It's not, it happens very seldom. So either Blinken didn't do his job or, Biden just didn't get it. I mean, I can imagine him sitting there and thinking, why is Blinken telling me all this weird stuff? I've already made my mind up. I don't need to learn anything. You have the same thing happening, though, with Milley and with Austin.
Right.
How could they possibly, as professionals, allow Bagram to be lost?
Exactly.
And keep the embassy?
Sir,
you
this
can't
is
possibly protect the embassy without Bagram.
Just even strategically for the region, in addition to the prison that was there that had ISIS and Al-Qaeda and Taliban jihadists, was emptied. It seems, sir, and as you look at the ground here, it's as though every decision that shouldn't have been made was made, and these are people with experience. Why has this happened? It is not just a bunch of mistakes. And when we think about who's in charge, we hear about people should resign, about impeachment, about a whole host of other things. What do you think should happen? What should the American people look for, and what should we demand?
First of all, we should remember Ronald Reagan's observation that it wasn't what liberals didn't know that scared him. It was what they knew that wasn't true. And so what you have is groupthink. You have Austin, the Secretary of Defense. You have Milley, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. You have the President of the United States. You have the Secretary of State. And apparently none of the four of them have a clue about the real world. Now, if that doesn't scare you, then listen to the Chinese communists talking about Taiwan, and that Taiwan had better realize that Joe Biden can't possibly protect them. Or listen to the Europeans. I mean, the president today either lied to the country or is so totally uninformed that it's scary. But our NATO allies are enraged. For him to say, oh, nobody's really angry at us, you have to wonder, I mean, what is he processing?
You see, this is what we have to find out.
That would allow him to think that he could just be that directly dishonest with everybody in the world.
Yes, sir. I can't thank you enough for your insight. Even South Korea is saying we'd like you to move things along faster, getting out of our country. This is a disaster of monumental proportions. Sir, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Appreciate your insight.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and